Hey everyone, welcome to the webinar today. Thanks again for joining. Let's get started with that. This session is Accelerate Your Risk Management Journey with HITRUST and Microsoft. I'm David Holding. I serve as the Director of Global Healthcare Business Strategy at Microsoft. Also with me today, I have Kristen Cloy, who is the Senior Director of Cloud Partner Development with HITRUST. HITRUST is our featured partner today. Very much look forward to what Kristen has to share, and I'll substantiate that with how Microsoft is enabling and partnering with HITRUST on some really exciting global programs for scale with compliance. Kristen, I'll let you introduce yourself further in a moment. But before we get into that, a brief overview of the agenda. So HITRUST again will be the feature today. Kristen will give us an overview. We'll also talk about global compliance and scale. HITRUST has a very exciting AI assurance program, which I'm looking forward to hearing about. A lot of opportunity there in operationalizing AI and managing risk around that. I will add some color from a Microsoft enablement and the programs we're doing with HITRUST, and we will have time at the end for Q&A. So very much invite you to submit your questions throughout the webinar, and we'll get to as many of those as we can during the Q&A. Kristen will also share some very helpful resources on how to engage. So before we get to the highlight with HITRUST, one poll question here. Very much encourage you to respond to this. You should see the poll up on your Teams interface. But are you currently HITRUST certified, or are you working towards a HITRUST certification? You'll have a few minutes to respond to that. And then Kristen will take a look at the results in a moment and speak to those. With that, we're going to get into the main part of our webinar today, HITRUST overview. Kristen, over to you.
Thank you, David. As David mentioned, my name is Kristen Cloy. I'm the Senior Director of Cloud Partner Development here at HITRUST. I work with David as well as others at Microsoft to create programs that will help our joint customers to better manage and scale their risk management program. So to start out with a little bit of an overview about who HITRUST is and why you might want to get a HITRUST certification. First of all, we have kind of two sides of this coin. The first is that we have assessed entities that need to be able to show credible and reliable risk management programs, and also need to stop wasting time kind of performing duplicative assessments when they're being asked to by relying parties. The number one way they want to do that is with an industry recognized assessment, and a way that allows them to kind of assess that one single time, but then be able to report many times. So on the other side, we have our relying parties, and what relying parties really want is just to have successful third-party risk management programs. They want to understand the suitability of the controls that will be applied. They want transparency and consistency in how those controls are reviewed and selected. And so the effective risk management of their programs leads to them wanting these kind of same industry recognized assessments that assessed entities need as well. One of the reasons that, well, several of the reasons that someone might choose HITRUST in order to do this is, first of all, HITRUST is kind of known in the industry as the gold standard in providing these assurances of risk management programs, just because of the comprehensiveness of the program, the rigorousness with which we review, and the effectiveness of the approach. HITRUST certifications are also recognized and accepted globally, so can be a great way to consolidate your assessment efforts. And our CSF, which is our cybersecurity framework that our assessments were built on, integrates not only our own set of controls that are required as part of the assessment, but also dozens of other authoritative sources. So these are different security and data privacy regulations, laws, standards that while you're achieving your certification, you may see overlap with, or you may be able to scope into your certification as well. We're also continually updating our methodology. So we have what is called a cyber risk adaptive framework, which uses a product from Microsoft called Microsoft Threat Defender to regularly pull in threat feeds and assess what is changing in the landscape to make sure that our framework structure is always up to date and that organizations are staying on top of the latest evolving threats and regulations. We're also standardizing the risk management approach because of our transparent methodologies. When it comes to risk management questionnaires, they can vary widely. They don't always incorporate the appropriate level of risk that a company might introduce by employing them as a vendor. And so the HITRUST approach really helps to consolidate that into one streamlined approach. We're also, each assessment that's submitted for certification must be submitted by an authorized external assessor. From there, it undergoes several different automated quality checks, as well as 5 different levels of independent and objective quality review as well from our assurance team analysts. So no other methodology really undergoes such a rigorous and comprehensive to certification. Let's pause here and take a look at the full results. So it looks like we have half and half that have started their certification versus have not. So that's good to know. Hopefully we'll be able to, for those of you that have already certified or on the path to certification, we'll be able to give you a little bit more insight based on what we're doing with Microsoft. And for those of you that haven't, hopefully we'll be able to give you more information to get started on your journey. So that said, there are 3 different types of certification that HITRUST offers, and these are really varying based on the objectives that you're trying to reach as an organization. So not only do we kind of have each version has a different number of controls included within, but they are also each nested within each other. So the first level of certification is our E1. This is our Security Essentials certification. It includes 44 security controls that are essentially what are deemed as the best practices as an organization to be following in order to be doing business. So from there, those 44 controls are nested within the next level of certification. So if you're looking to kind of benchmark upwards, you're able to do so more quickly whenever it comes to the certification levels. So that next level is the I1. This is for organizations that have a security program in place and they want to be able to demonstrate the implementation of those controls against the current and emerging threats as well. So finally, the next level of certification is the R2 certification. And this is not only for organizations that have a cybersecurity program in place, but also that are maybe looking to add additional regulations or standards or frameworks to that certification as they go. So it's definitely the most substantial. There are on average 375 controls included in this one. You're also able to scope in, for example, if you would like to show your compliance to the requirements of HIPAA, you can scope HIPAA into the assessment as well as several other authoritative sources, we call them. And that being said, let's take a look at these authoritative sources. So we have what we call authoritative sources are any of those security and data privacy standards, laws, and regulations that you might be looking to meet or prove that you align with. And we, as I mentioned, have 40 that we incorporate into our framework, and a lot of these controls overlap with the controls that you can anticipate being included in your HITRUST certification. So a lot of times it makes sense that if you want to show that you align with HIPAA, that you just scope that in as part of your HITRUST certification, and it kind of helps you to use that work that you're already doing to your certification to align with what you need to be doing in order to prove that you meet the requirements of HIPAA as well. Next, I want to discuss something that is particularly as it relates to Microsoft is very relevant. So we have a concept called inheritance that focuses on the shared responsibility model. And what this looks like is when an organization like Microsoft, who already maintains HITRUST certifications for several of their own products and services, Microsoft Azure, Power Platform, Dynamics 365, and Microsoft 365, whenever you're using one of these services, you can actually import the control testing results and scores from that HITRUST certification to your own HITRUST certification. What this does, it enables you to move faster. It's not, you don't have to provide the references from your own environment. It's already provided there for you through Microsoft. And it's a simple request that is validated by Microsoft before being incorporated into your final certification. So as you can see, we have varying levels of how much inheritance can be incorporated into each of our different certifications, but especially with that E1 certification at that the lower level, you can inherit up to 85% of that just through using these Microsoft services alone. So it can be a really great way to more quickly show your compliance and your risk assurance, your risk management program's success. Now, I mentioned earlier the third-party risk management issue that we sometimes see with our relying parties. And the HITRUST approach really helps an organization extend beyond the maturity of their own cybersecurity program into also helping to maintain the maturity of their vendors' cybersecurity programs as well, and making sure that they're working with organizations that will help them to not introduce an inappropriate level of risk to their own organization. So based on the level of risk that a vendor might introduce, you can choose that level of HITRUST certification that you might require out of somebody that you're working with. And each of those assessments allows you to not only have confidence that those vendors are meeting the necessary requirements, but also ensure that your stakeholders feel that way as well when you're assessing and mitigating third-party risk. So again, HITRUST it's trusted, it's experienced, and it can help organizations to be able to better assist with their third-party risk management. In that same vein, there's a new organization that was developed last year called Health3PT. And this organization was established to develop solutions to help manage information security related risks with vendors in that third-party risk management problem. And so what this organization intended to do was create a standard set of best practices that will allow vendors to streamline this organizations to streamline this process when it comes to their vendors. So Health3PT has approved HITRUST as the first and currently the only assurance supplier that supports the recommended practices here. So each of these member organizations that founded Health3PT has essentially said, if an organization presents a HITRUST certification to us as one of our vendors, it will help to fast track and streamline the onboarding process because they won't have to go through additional layers of assessments or questionnaires. Health3PT is also growing. These are the kind of council member organizations, but there are several additional organizations that have signed up to kind of join this effort as well and align with the requirements of Health3PT in order to streamline their efforts as well. Next, similar to Health3PT, but more along the lines of interoperability, TEFCA was established TEFCA was created to establish a universal floor for interoperability across the US. So this really ends up applying to anyone that's sharing data within healthcare systems. There is a designation called a Qualified Health Information Network that is one of the that's working to connect all of these networks nationwide when it comes to interoperability. And each of these QHINs has to meet a HITRUST R2 certification in order to be selected. So not every organization will be a QHIN here, but what it is anticipated is that there will be flow down requirements that all participants and sub-participants must meet in order to maintain membership in TEFCA. And this will likely look like a HITRUST certification as well to make sure that all of the best practices are aligning at every level. So that was a high-level overview of what's going on with HITRUST. But now I'll switch gears a little bit into some programs that we're specifically working on with Microsoft in order to streamline our customers' efforts to both manage and scale their risk management programs. So first, we have a new initiative by HITRUST called the Compliance Insights Report. And what this is designed to do is take the results that you already have through your HITRUST assessment and certification and be able to use them to apply to specific regulations, laws, and standards. So those authoritative sources that I mentioned. So the idea is that, you have your HITRUST assessment that you've already done. You're likely inheriting through Microsoft or other partners as well. And all of those results will end up being mapped into this Compliance Insights Report that speaks directly in the language of the authoritative source. So the first that we produced and that's available is a HIPAA Compliance Insights Report. And what this does is you'll see an overview of what the context is in relation to that specific regulation. It also will claim that it was derived from the HITRUST assessment results, but it is not a HITRUST certification. So it speaks more in the language of the exact regulation at hand whenever you have to go either to internal stakeholders or external stakeholders to show that you align with the requirements. It gives you a very straightforward way to show that you do. So when the actual physical report, this is an example to the left right here of it not only will give that kind of overview that I mentioned, but then it will also break up between the individual requirements of that law or regulation or standard, and it will show you where you are fully compliant, partially compliant, or not compliant. From there, you can internally look at where you're not compliant and be able to quickly remediate exactly those gaps, which helps you go to market more quickly with your solution and spend less time on compliance. One additional element that is being added to these compliance reports is a new products and services guide. So when you have that line item that shows that you're maybe not compliant with a particular requirement, this new products and services guide will be linked for you right there, and you'll go straight from there into the products and services guide that shows you which products and services will help you become compliant. So whether that's something that you're already using that you can look to the guide to say, oh, these are the things that I need to do in order to make that cover my gaps, or whether it's a new product that you might need to acquire in order to make sure that you're able to do so. The products and services guide will very cleanly lay that out from several different vendors that we've worked with in order to incorporate in this guide. So the vendors might look like we have Microsoft and other cloud service providers. We have particularly, security organizations that might specialize in WAF or in MFA that you can go specifically select in order to make sure that you're meeting compliance more quickly. And this products and services guide won't only be available from those compliance insights reports, although that's definitely an easy way to quickly remediate those gaps. It will also be available directly from your HITRUST assessment. So overall, when you're looking at your control scores and results, if you need specific remediation there, it can help you directly from your assessment, as well as from a standalone web platform that can be accessed by anyone. So talking about the Compliance Insights reports, we ran earlier this year a pilot directly with Microsoft on that initial HIPAA Compliance Insights report, the first report that became available. And what our goal was to do was work with our customers and partners to get feedback on the approach, the design, the usability, and make sure that these reports were something that would be valuable to our stakeholders to make sure that they're able to better meet their compliance requirements and scale more easily globally. So from there, we refined and released our first Compliance Insights report with HIPAA, and we'll be using the same structure to create later versions of these reports as well. So on the roadmap right now, we have Ontario PHIPAA will be the next one that's coming out. We're working directly with organizations in Canada to make sure that this aligns with the requirements as they see for the legislation. We're also planning to release a compliance insights report on GDPR. We're looking at state ramp. We're looking at different AI frameworks. And so from here, we'll continue based on those authoritative sources that we include in our framework to refine these to make sure that we're releasing reports that are relevant, that our customers need to be able to share with both internal and external stakeholders. This pilot that we did on HIPAA, we do plan to do for Ontario PHIPAA, for GDPR, et cetera. And it's not just open to our customers. It's something that we're able to share with prospects as well, if anyone is interested in pursuing this path. And we're happy to get in touch with you if you're interested. We have contact information on a later slide, and feel free to reach out. Finally, I'd like to speak a little bit about AI assurances. So recently, HITRUST announced the industry's first AI assurance program. What we realized is our joint customers are implementing AI services, and they're really looking to us to establish meaningful and reliable assurances when incorporating AI into what they're doing already. And so what we've already done is we've added into the HITRUST CSF two AI frameworks, one from NIST and one from ISO, that you can scope into your certification as you're going through it. We'll continue to not only develop these frameworks as more is added to and included in them, but also add additional frameworks that become available. We're also developing a working group with different experts in the industry, including some from Microsoft, that will be able to determine what the market needs are when looking for what a certification might look like to reasonably address the use of AI. So that's something that we plan to work on through the coming year. And through our shared responsibility and inheritance model that I already mentioned, Microsoft customers will be able to import their control results through the assurances already provided by Microsoft's existing HITRUST certifications. So with that, I think I will pass it back to David for a little bit more about the Microsoft programs and enablement that's available.
Thank you, Kristen. Several great capabilities. And, the reality is health and life sciences organizations, compliance is complex, right? You've got a lot of different regulations, data protection laws, privacy security standards to comply with. I love the efficiency that HITRUST brings with the CSF and tackling that area of overlap where you have a given requirement in the CSF that satisfies something in HIPAA, something in GDPR, something in PCI, et cetera. Very powerful scale opportunity there. And so I'll add a little bit of color from Microsoft enablement standpoint. How are we enabling HITRUST, and what are the programs we have with HITRUST, and how do we look at those in terms of the value to our partners, the solution providers, the service providers, and of course the health and life sciences organizations worldwide. So first up, just to build on what Kristen shared, Microsoft Cloud is HITRUST certified, specifically Azure Dynamics 365, Microsoft 365, and Power Platform are HITRUST certified. That includes 162 Azure services, 115 Azure government services. All GA regions across both Azure and Azure government are included, and Kristen shared the different levels of HITRUST assessment. For us, it's specifically the R2 validated assessment, validated by an independent third-party certified external assessor for HITRUST. The certification covers the policies, procedures, processes, and controls, and we have a letter of certification available at the link on the right. There's a QR code. Definitely encourage you to follow that as your interest takes you. Also, the shared responsibilities and inheritance, Kristen talked about this briefly. I really want to underscore the value here. So as you're embarking on getting your own HITRUST certification for the solutions, the workloads you have running on Microsoft Cloud, for example, Azure, this is a very powerful capability, right? You can, let's say you have several hundred requirements you need to comply with in order to get HITRUST certified at a specific level, whether it's the E1, the I1, or the R2. And yeah, because you're running on Microsoft Cloud, you can now inherit a huge chunk. Several hundred, requirements are satisfied because you're running on Microsoft Cloud, and Microsoft Cloud is HITRUST certified. That vastly decreases the scope of the requirements you need to then comply with, and that in turn reduces the scope, the time it takes you to get certified, the cost and the resources you need to allocate. So very powerful. If you want more information on shared responsibilities and inheritance for HITRUST within Microsoft Cloud, check out that link on the right. A little bit on the Microsoft Global Healthcare Compliance Scale Program. Kristen touched on this in the context of the Compliance Insights reports, which in turn depend on the CSF mappings to all these different regulations, data protection laws, privacy security standards. And this is really exciting to us for our partners, like the solution providers, and for health and life sciences organizations that we serve. On the partner side, think of a partner that provides a solution to health and life sciences, and they're looking to grow globally into new countries, new regions, new states, provinces, territories. They encounter new regulations, data protection laws, privacy security standards, and they have to comply with those before they can sell in those different sort of geographical areas. And this capability gives the solution provider partner a way to streamline their compliance for global scale, because as they're going into a new country or a new area, they can then report on their existing HITRUST assessment results with these compliance insights reports and present that to the health and life sciences organization. Here's our solution running on Azure. Here's a proactive look for you of the compliance of this solution through the lens of your local regulation, for example. That's very powerful. It enables the customer to look at the compliance concerns of the solution, alleviate any confusion that there may be, questions they may have, accelerate solution adoption, and accelerate sort of go live and time to value. So very excited about that. Now, on the health and life sciences side, obviously enabling that proactive look at compliance. The reality is, without this, a lot of times the compliance team is, they're getting involved after the solution is already adopted, and they sort of, get blindsided in a sense from, hey, make the solution compliant. This enables them to shift left and get a proactive look at compliance before they actually adopt the solution and go in, fully aware of what they need to do and hit the ground running to accelerate, again, getting compliant and then going live and accelerating time to value. So very exciting program that we're partnering with HITRUST on. So if we look at, so many of you may have sort of familiarity with the traditional sort of compliance set of steps, the readiness assessment, the remediation, the validated assessment, the Q&A, the certification, and ultimately the go live. It's really the solution adoption phase that this Global Healthcare Compliance Scale Program and the Compliance Insights reports are used at. So again, as the solution is presented to the Health and Life Sciences organization, they get that proactive look, accelerate, a solution adoption, and get a running start in terms of readiness and gap assessment. And so accelerate adoption and time to value, very exciting there. But this is very synergistic and upfront of other compliance activities that occur. Does not replace those. So one of the tools we have at Microsoft, you may be familiar with, Purview Compliance Manager, a very powerful tool to help you achieve and maintain compliance. Purview Compliance Manager is powered by templates. There's over 360 templates. One of those templates is HITRUST. And so downstream of solution adoption, once you already adopt your solution, it's running in your Microsoft Cloud, for example, in your Azure tenant, and you want to achieve and maintain HITRUST certification, you can run Purview Compliance Manager with the HITRUST template. It'll inspect your environment, not just your Azure, but also can see your on-prem environment. If you open that up, it can see multi-cloud even. It can detect non-compliance items, flag those for you. Hey, possible non-compliance here, unencrypted sensitive data, whatever the case may be, and enable you to then remediate that non-compliance issue and get 100% compliant and maintain compliance ongoing. Very exciting capability, very synergistic with the Compliance Insights report. Remember, Compliance Insights report is upfront of solution adoption. Purview Compliance Manager is once solution has already been adopted and is running in your environment and can be inspected by Purview Compliance Manager. So further, the synergy here is the products and services guide that Kristen was talking about also can highlight, Purview Compliance Manager as one of the tools that can help you get compliant and maintain compliance. HITRUST on Microsoft Azure, we're very excited to say that HITRUST MyCSF solution itself and related solutions run on Azure. And also HITRUST is making use of Azure OpenAI to accelerate their mappings to new regulations, data protection laws, privacy security standards. Remember, the whole global healthcare compliance scale program depends on these compliance insights reports. The compliance insights reports in turn depend on these mappings from the CSF to these different regulatory frameworks. And as HITRUST and Microsoft go global with this program, this capability, we encounter new countries, new regions, new states, provinces, territories that have new sort of regulations and so forth, and new mapping challenges. And AI can greatly accelerate that. This is a great use case for AI. Because it really empowers the compliance professionals to accelerate those mappings, get 70, 80%, but also then apply the rigor of the NIST OLIR process around that to ensure accuracy and completeness and several levels of human review to ensure absolute accuracy and completeness of those mappings. But great use case for AI in terms of empowering compliance professionals. At Microsoft, we have a big initiative around responsible AI. You can see a quote there from our Global Chief Technology Officer for Health and Life Sciences, John Doyle. We pay a lot of attention to responsible AI, and you can see the principles there of fairness, reliability, safety, of course, privacy and security and compliance, but inclusiveness, transparency, accountability. And aside from agreeing with that, I think everybody agrees we'd like to apply AI in the responsible way, meeting those principles. But how do you actually do that in practice? Well, one of the very powerful ways, the powerful tools to operationalize AI while making sure that you do it responsibly is AI assurance, and specifically AI risk management, and really excited to see HITRUST CSF mapped to both the NIST AI risk management framework and the ISO IEC 23894 AI risk management framework, and looking forward to the compliance insights reports around that to come. So there's a nice ebook there on the right. Very much encourage you to click through on that if you're interested in hearing more, and encourage you to leverage that AI risk management. As far as third-party trust, so this is one of the things we hear from health and life sciences organizations worldwide, that a major source of their risk is the third parties, is the business associates, the data processors, many of which need access to sensitive information in order to provide their services to the covered entity or the data controller, whether it's a provider, a payer, or otherwise. You have these third parties, sometimes hundreds of thousands of them, and they're a big source of risk, right? If they're handling sensitive data, if their security privacy is not adequate, they could have a breach, they could have ransomware, they could impact the covered entity, and that's something everybody wants to avoid, including patients, right? So at Microsoft, we have our own, what we call our SSPA program, our Supplier Security Privacy Assurance Program. That's to vet our suppliers, our third parties, if you will, from a security privacy standpoint. We literally have over 58,000 suppliers worldwide, which includes business associates, but data processors, as they're known in Europe and other locales, of course, just third parties generically. And we're excited to say one of the tokens of assurance we'll accept for the SSPA program is HITRUST. So if you're a third party, you're coming to Microsoft, hey, Microsoft, we want to provide you some services, which involve the use or access to sensitive information. Okay, you got to comply with, you got to ensure you have adequate security privacy. We will accept your HITRUST certification as evidence of that. Microsoft's very much motivated to around the mission of improving the efficiency and effectiveness of assurance around third-party risk management. And doing that with an ad hoc questionnaire is not only super inefficient, both for the the entity producing the questionnaire, like Microsoft in this example, or the healthcare organization, it's super inefficient for them to send that questionnaire and vet all the results on a third party by third party basis. Also, for each third party, it's super inefficient, right? Because they need to do that for every organization they want to contract with. So the HITRUST token of assurance is a very powerful technique, again, to improve efficiency, but also improve effectiveness, because the reality is, if you're creating an ad hoc questionnaire for security privacy, it may or may not be rigorous. HITRUST has been very well vetted by thousands of organizations worldwide. It's a very mature framework. It is a high bar for information privacy and security, compliance and assurance. So excited about that. Several resources you can click through on the right here. The last one I wanted to hit here is threat adaptive assurances. So, we know that the threat sort of risk landscape is constantly evolving. New threats are emerging, and those threats need to be mitigated, right? We need new security controls to mitigate an emerging threat. Unfortunately, in the past, there's been sort of window of opportunity before emergence of the threat and the compliance frameworks catching up. And the challenge is for the compliance frameworks to track much more closely what are the emerging threats, what are the required security controls to adequately mitigate, and how do we shrink or eliminate that window of opportunity? And that requires real-time threat intelligence information. We're excited to say the HITRUST Cyber Threat Adaptive Assurance, which is essentially doing just that, tracking emerging threats, is powered by Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence. And again, to reduce or eliminate that window of opportunity between when a threat first emerges and when the compliance frameworks reflect the necessary security to properly mitigate that or adequately mitigate that risk. So several resources on the right you can click through as your interest takes you. But with that, Kristen is going to share a little bit with you on how to engage. Kristen, over to you.
Thank you, David. So first of all, HITRUST is available in the Azure Marketplace. You can purchase your MyCSF subscription. That is the main way that you submit your assessment results in order to be certified. That's where you are able to store all of that data to be able to use in future certifications as well. And that is MAC eligible as well. So if there's any information that you're looking for on this, please contact marketplace@hitrustalliance.net and we can help you work through that. The last thing that I'll share as we lead into our Q&A is we have two available links for you here. One on a case study that we did with Microsoft Azure and Teladoc Health on how they're using those compliance insights reports to streamline their global compliance and scale. We also spoke in a similar vein at the Microsoft Inspire conference with our customer Smile Digital Health to discuss the global compliance and scale program. So that's something that may be of interest as well.
And Kristen, thank you very much. Some great resources here, case studies. You can see more. There's short videos with the Teladoc one. There's a case study there. You can read a lot more about the value in the Global Healthcare Compliance Scale Program, how we're partnering with HITRUST, the Compliance Insights reports, and so forth. And then the one on the right, Smile Digital Health, another healthcare solution provider based in Canada, but doing work globally. That's an Microsoft Inspire session that was recorded, now available for your review on demand. Ton of information there where you can learn how you can leverage these programs and capabilities. Definitely encourage you to look at those. And then the one thing you touched on, Chris, and I just wanted to elaborate a little bit, is you talked about how HITRUST is on the marketplace, available for purchase, and it's MAC eligible, MACC. That's Microsoft Azure Consumption Commitment. So a lot of organizations, health and life sciences organizations, have Azure commitment. That helps them get a better rate on their Azure use. And then, what they can do is by purchasing HITRUST through the marketplace, they can get the MAC incentive, which is basically counting the spend on HITRUST through the marketplace towards their Azure commitment. So a powerful additional value in addition to all the goodness that HITRUST provides. Kristen has given an overview of. All right, one of the questions we have next is, are there any plans either on Microsoft or HITRUST side on mapping to SOC Type 2, SOC 2? Kristen, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So there are not plans on the HITRUST side to map to SOC 2. One thing that we establish as part of our kind of foundational program is any of the security controls that might be included in a SOC 2 will be something that you could potentially scope into your HITRUST assessment, but you'll also have the ability to kind of have that rigor and comprehensiveness behind the actual validation of those controls that comes along with a HITRUST certification as well. So in terms of plans on that side, it's not something that we plan to incorporate, but it is something that we feel like a HITRUST certification could serve as a substitution to.
That's great. Thank you, Kristen. Next question we have is, I'm new to HITRUST. What are the next steps to get started with certification? Kristen, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so the first thing that you'll need to do is look into our external assessor program. So as I just mentioned, that we require each certification is handled by an external assessor in order to make sure that we have that separate party doing all of the work behind the security controls, et cetera. So on our website, we have all of our authorized external assessors, and it's a quick, simple Google HITRUST external assessors. You'll be able to find them. It's really about finding the organization that works best for you. Some of them are more expensive than others. Some of them have different plans of how they execute work than others. It's all about what you're looking for specifically from your organization. So I would say to start with some research on the external assessors. We don't necessarily give priority to any of those assessors. They're all a part of our program for a reason. They maintain their status for a reason, because we know that they do good work. So it's really up to you in terms of that decision. We're able to help guide a little bit if you do need any type of help on where to start. But that's definitely the first step, is lining up with your external assessor and kind of figuring out next steps there.
Makes sense. Thank you, Kristen. And next up, we have a question on, if I'm using HITRUST certified Microsoft services, so think of Microsoft Cloud and like Azure and all the services underneath, or Azure Government or Dynamics 365, Microsoft 365 Power Platform, how do I inherit those controls for my own HITRUST certification? Do you want to take that from a MyCSF sort of process? And I might add to that from Microsoft's standpoint.
Yeah. So when you're working with your external assessor, that will be part of the work that they do in order to submit those controls that are required as part of your assessment. And that all happens in our MyCSF tool. So when you think about the cost associated with a HITRUST certification, you have two different elements. You have the external assessor, and then you have on the actual HITRUST side, you have the cost of the MyCSF tool, which is where you submit everything. And so that's where you make those inheritance requests. From there, it goes directly to Microsoft to essentially validate that you are using that service the way that you say that you're using it. And then that inheritance is added into your assessment result.
Yeah, great summary, Kristen. And just to add to that, so in terms of inheritance, there's sort of three different levels. There's fully inherited. So let's say you have a requirement that says, hey, the physical data center needs to be, secured with locks or something to that effect. That'd be an example of one that is fully inherited, right? Because you're running on Azure, the data center and security around it is on Microsoft, so you're fully inheriting. You can also get partial inheritance. There might be a requirement that Microsoft might partially meet that, and then you need to cover your part of it. It's sort of a shared, literally a shared responsibility. And then you can get a not inherited, which is something that's very much on your side. It's not inherited at all, not fully, not partially. An example of that might be identity and access management. You as an organization are deciding, who gets access to your solution, your data, and that's fully your responsibility, not inherited. So these different requirements, when you and your external assessor, your HITRUST certified external assessor, to Kristen's earlier points, determine, hey, we want to inherit this or partially inherit that. That request goes through MyCSF effectively to the Azure audit team, and they vet that to make sure, hey, there's an assertion of using Azure here. Let's make sure that's correct. If it is correct, it's approved, and So there's a lot of rigor. It's not just one organization saying, hey, this should be inheritable, we're inheriting it. That's actually vetted by Microsoft and specifically the Azure audit team. And the reason for that is we really want to make sure there's rigor there and nothing falls through the cracks in terms of you thought we were doing it, we thought you were doing it. We want to explicitly verify every inheritance request just to make sure that that is correct and there's no mismatch in expectations. The end goal is to make sure everything is covered end to end in the HITRUST CSF requirements, and all the controls are effectively in place, and risk is adequately mitigated, and healthcare can proceed without, or minimizing disruptions from breaches and ransomware and insider threats and all of that. Okay, enough said on that. Kristen, another question here. So I'm not currently HITRUST certified. Am I able to participate in pilot programs? I assume that might be referring to the compliance insights related pilot programs. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, so that is something that we can definitely look into. Organizations don't necessarily, while the Compliance Insights report is based on the HITRUST assessment results that our customers have, organizations don't have to necessarily have those results in hand in order to participate in the pilot. So there's a few different elements of that. One might be you might perform a targeted assessment that can give you visibility into what that would look like. That, of course, requires a little bit of extra effort, especially if you're already prepping to go through a certification. Might not necessarily be something that you want to go through at the moment. If that's the case, the second option would be to participate as someone within the industry that needs to have to represent the results as it pertains to these individual authoritative sources. And you can take a look at our planned compliance insights reports and give feedback on our kind of mock-up of those reports. So we do have versions that look at what is a fake organization that kind of shows you the outline of the report, the type of information that's included, et cetera. And that's something that we love to hear feedback from our customers, and particularly from our potential customers on, to make sure that it meets the needs, that the design and usability is there. So we're happy to include in non-customers in those pilots in the capacity that makes sense. And if that's something that you're interested in, feel free, again, that contact email that I listed on that last slide, which I'll type into the chat, where you can reach out and we're happy to have that discussion.
Yeah, I love that, Kristen. Thank you. And great opportunity for anyone viewing this either live today or on demand. If you want to find out more about Compliance Insights, reach out to Kristen, join one of the pilots. You get an early preview and you get the ability to submit feedback. What works great for you? What can we improve? And there could be downstream opportunities around case studies and conference events, that type of thing, sort of marketing motions. So I very much encourage you to reach out to Kristen. I see an email address in the chat. For those that are watching this recording on demand, if you do have questions, and feel free to reach out to us. We love interacting, partnering with you, and feel free to reach out to Kristen or myself. I think we're both available on LinkedIn, and Kristen shared some contact information. Very excited to collaborate and partner on these, again, for global scale. So even if you're outside the US, I know we focused on HIPAA today and PHIPAA in Canada, but know that HITRUST is worldwide. They have GDPR in Europe, they have PDPA in Asia Pacific and Singapore specifically. They have ISO, mappings to the ISO frameworks, 27,000 series and so forth, the AI risk assurance. So HITRUST is very much worldwide, and we're looking forward to building worldwide presence with HITRUST as we go global with the Microsoft Global Compliance Scale Program. I want to thank you very much for your time today and the questions. And Kristen, you had a couple of additional resources here to share with folks. Do you want to speak to those?
Yes, just our website here, as well as some different documents that you can view in our download center. But I think that's it from us. We've got some links in the chat as well, if you want to view those. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks to our organizers and our facilitators and the team that brought this session to you today. Thank you for joining today. Really appreciate the time, and look forward to collaboration downstream. Thanks again, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you.